Brandon Bernier, 430 East 6th Avenue. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last month, I brought up serious concerns about the DPW budget, specifically the fact that we're spending at least $600,000 more now than we were before we switched to collecting our own garbage. I'm wondering if anyone on Council has looked into those numbers and if anyone is looking into whether or not it makes any financial sense to continue down that path. I also have to quickly question Councilwoman Shaw's decision at last month's meeting to spend 12 minutes reading a prepared statement focused on personal attacks and a single member of the public that I haven't seen in months now, that she believes wastes the borough's time. Instead of committee reports or ward updates, time is constantly being wasted responding to things that aren't borough business. I can't say I've ever heard a full slate of committee reports. It's ironic to me that anyone would waste time to complain about someone else wasting time. I'd ask you to please rise above it and respond to those of us that actually come up here and present legitimate facts and ask relevant questions. Last week at the workshop meeting, this council spoke an awful lot about correcting misinformation and calling out blatant lies, which I'm absolutely all for. I'm a fan of well-sourced and documented information, and I come to this podium every month with facts and questions trying to obtain more facts. So to that end, I'm wondering if and when this council is going to start correcting the misinformation being cavalierly thrown around by former Mayor Holly. If this council refuses to, I'd like to spend the next few minutes doing it myself. At last month's meeting, the Assemblyman addressed this council claiming that Councilman Alberg and former Board of Education President Anthony Esposito somehow bound the Board of Ed to lease agreements totaling $700,000 a year to buildings they both have interests. He said that Mr. Esposito bound future boards of ed, and I quote, to provide a lease to pay for $700,000 to his church where he served as a trustee. This is a flat-out lie at worst, disingenuous at best. He's thrown this $700,000 number around for a while now, but as of this year, the Board of Ed is spending $578,646, not $700,000, to lease space in St. Joe's and Shim's Academy on St. George. So let's state the facts. Councilman Alberg is a trustee at St. Joseph's and has been since 2008, as far as I'm aware. However, he hasn't been on the Board of Ed since 2008 when he was elected to this council. Mr. Esposito has never been a trustee at St. Joe's, but rather is simply a parishioner. The lease the Assemblyman referred to for space in St. Joe's was signed by the Board of Ed, including Councilman Atkins and Councilwoman Walker, who were on the board at that time, in 2011. It was a 5-year lease, the maximum allowed by law, that ran from July 1st, 2011 to June 30th, 2016. Future boards of ed have since voted annually on cost adjustments, and the Board of Ed voted at a special meeting on June 22nd, 2016 to extend the lease for $278,646. They voted and decided to extend the lease. They weren't bound to it for 30 years. Mayor, I may have more time. What the Assemblyman also conveniently left out is that $300,000 of his supposed $700,000 figure is for the lease of Shim's Academy, a building neither Councilman Alberg nor Mr. Esposito have any interest in whatsoever. The Board of Ed voted to extend the lease on September 26, 2016. The agendas for these meetings, as well as the exact dollar amounts of these leases, are readily available on the board's website. And if transparency was really the issue here, we might be talking about the thousands of dollars in campaign contributions made to the Assemblyman, this council, and other county politicians by the companies directly profiting from the Mind and Body Project. He then claimed, as he's done many times before, that we were taking that $700,000 and simply, quote, reinvesting it into our own building where we own. Again, this is where the Assemblyman either simply doesn't know his facts or is blatantly misguiding Roselle residents. This notion that the Board of Ed is already spending the money and will simply redirect it for the Mind and Body Complex only tells half the story, if that. Number one, the Union County Improvement Authority will own the Mind and Body Complex, not us, at least not until we're done paying off the bonds in 30 years. Number two, this is a $59 million project, $35 million for the borough's rec center, $24 million for the Board of Ed's new school. And that's just the bond principal. You add in the interest on the bonds, and that's $59 million, quickly becomes closer to $110 million over the next 30 years, only covering the cost to build the complex. The Board of Ed lease will be no less than $1.3 million a year, more than double the current $578,000. So to say they will simply redirect that money leaves out the key point that they also need to double it, which means a tax increase, plain and simple. And in the borough's annual payment, which will approach $2 million, and residents are looking at a tax increase of over $400 combined. Again, that doesn't include operational costs, which we've asked about time and time again, insurance on a pool, staffing, or any of the costs residents are going to have to pay to use the programs there. Go back and watch the Assemblyman at the Board of Ed's Education Summit in May, where he said, quote, "The naysayers and negative people will say, well, we're raising taxes, and that's not the case," end quote. Obviously, taxes are going to have to be raised. I'll remind everyone that the median household income in Roselle is just over $43,000, and average property taxes are just under $10,000, which puts Roselle in the top 10 for worst tax burden in New Jersey, with 23% of household income going towards taxes. There are over 450 vacant homes in Roselle. Our municipal budget is up 20% since 2009, while our revenues are actually down 2% over the same period. The borough is already in $40 million of debt and quickly approaching our debt cap of about $47 million. The mind and body complex will almost instantly double that current debt, yet somehow, because technically that debt is with the UCIA, we've convinced ourselves this is somehow financially sound. I've been asking for months for numbers that make sense. Show me the money. Show me where it all adds up. Show me how Roselle residents can afford this, because right now I still don't see it. The last thing I'll say is, you know, numbers don't lie. People do, but numbers don't lie. So show me facts and figures that add up, and I'd love it.